Hello, and welcome to another look at my extremely average NRL fantasy team. We got rid of the name on this, isn't it? What did we have? Nikki's narratives for a while. That seems to have dropped off. Um, let's go with that. Nikki's narratives. Another narrative this week. I have a fun narrative to talk about. Well, fun might be debatable, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Um, yeah. Normally a good week, right? 1,000 points, more or less. Yeah, still kind of average. We made what, 1,000 of ranks or something? Yeah, pretty much 1,000 ranks. Not really good enough. Um, no Haas, obviously. First week that's hurt, but it was kind of offset by, having Terrell May smash it, so captainers didn't get too far ahead. And also, by my probably one good trade of the year, probably the best trade I've made so far anyway, bringing in Erin Clark, smashed it, big talking point Erin Clark, and I do want to kind of go in a bit depth on Clark in a bit, because I know lots of people will be looking at him this week. Some people are really high on him. Um, yeah, I'm just we'll see. We'll see. We'll talk about him. Uh, rest of the team, I mean, generally, obviously people have. Except for the big smiling, I don't know what he's smiling about down there, Latrell Mitchell. I'm normally pretty level-headed about this stuff. You know, I don't get too worked up. There are moments in games where, if you're death riding somebody and they have a big play or somebody you've got just blows up or blows up a chance, it's a bit frustrating. But I generally, I think I take it quite well anyway. But Saturday night, sorry, Friday night, Latrell Mitchell, I was raging. That might have had at least something to do with the fact that there had been a few Anzac Day beverages throughout the afternoon, and by the time the Bunnies game was ready to go, it might have been a little bit emotional. Emotions might have been running a little higher than normal. But yeah, his sin binning, I mean, I was raging. Absolutely killed me. Uh, like, if he needs to spend for 1 week, I'm not selling him. I'm keeping him another week. It's just been one of these moves that hasn't worked, right? Like, it was a risk, which you knew at the time. But when you're struggling, you kind of need to take these risks. And he's got such a huge ceiling and like such a good floor as well. Like, at least part of the analysis, and like, I don't necessarily think it was a bad trade, and it's not worked. But like, at least the analysis of like ton of kick meters. He's going to have a decent base, and he really just needs one or two attacking plays to get a boom score. And even this base, like 36 isn't good. You add back the sin bin, that's like 43. Another 10 minutes on the pitch easily could be a 50. Like 50 is fine with the no attack that he's been generating. It only takes one or two plays. Easy for him to get these 20 point tries and like, offload try assists type things. It's the boom game is there and it'll come, hopefully. But yeah, Souths in general. I don't know, like I don't think it's not all him. Souths in general attack. I mean, what attack? So it's not just him. But he's the key. Like if they're gonna score points, he has to set up, stand up and be the guy that we know he can be. And yeah, hopefully a week off, sit down, give him a you know kick up the arse, and he can have a couple of big games before Origin because he's my one real pod that could fire me up the ranks if it comes off. And once we get to Origin, I assume he gets picked. Him and Crichton in the center, so we'll kind of work out if we move on or what from there. I'd love it if he gets a bit of a wake up call and they decide, you know what, you're not playing well enough. We're just not going to pick you. Um, I think that'd be awesome, but awesome for me, not necessarily for him or for New South Wales. But yeah, I doubt it'll happen. So we'll work it out. Everyone else, Newcastle guys, just not producing. At least I don't have Ponga. Everyone else is kind of okay, you know. Hines fine, Preston's fine. Kind of guns bringing in that brought on over the last few weeks, prepping for round 12. Not going gangbusters, but doing quite well. So Vala was able to get his points, which was good. Marky Mark is my other trade in last week. I thought he looked like he could have been on for a huge one as well, but just really stopped doing anything of any note in that second half. Um, I'm so glad that the Warriors game came on before the Storm game because my trades were taking out Cam Munster. And I've said before, like Munster would have big games, he would produce at some point, and I wanted to hold him uh for him to do that. And 60, what did he get? 63? Not huge, but certainly better than he'd been doing the rest of the year. And if I hadn't already had Clark score in the sorry, hadn't had Clark score in the bag, then that would have might have tipped me over the edge. Munster scoring well, Latrell's sin binning and poor score, and yeah, I you might not have been hearing from me today. I might have quit. Thankfully, thankfully I'm here and everything's good. Um, Trades this week. I haven't really landed on anything yet. Like, I mean, I could not trade, um, but I don't really want to. Um, my initial thoughts are are trading out probably Rob Toya. I have so this is my my buy planning that I've been showing. Like I said last week, I had bringing in bringing in Marky Mark kind of gave me some additional cover over this period, so I'm not worried about trading out like say around 11, guy like Toya or Jenkins or Katonga if things don't work out for him. I'm not trading it this week, but like in general. Roosters by next week. I'm not hurt by that as much as others. I've got three, which is fine, but he's not really. It's not looking great for him. He's made his money. So yeah, I'm thinking of maybe him down to King Tonga, however you say the young dragons half. We'll just stick with the young dragons half. Um, Raise that 200k and then see if we can do an upgrade somewhere else. So, Jenkins, yeah, I still think there's potential there, but he could go Hubner on the bench. I think he's a hold in general. Like even off the bench, I mean he's even his you know a lot of his good scores starting were still only like 40, 50 minutes. Um, yeah, 47 minutes, 51 minutes, whatever. You could still get that off the bench. Possibly. So I think he's a hold to wait and see what we do. But in saying that, if you can get a good upgrade from there, then I don't mind it. And Brimson as well is maybe the other one where uh like that it's fine. He either gets defensive stats or the odd try. Obviously, the odd try he scored quite a few tries. He'll get something which is giving him respectable scores most weeks, but again, not holding him for Origin. And if I have that extra 200 and whatever K, you can get up to that 750 kind of gun territory. And whether that's getting gun mids in or, anywhere really. Like I've been looking at, say, Dylan Lucas, could be another option there. Again, just shoring up these uh, buy rounds where so it's, actually getting guns rather than just, oh, I'll play Jenkins to get a number out there. Hey, I can actually get a gun like Lucas. So I might do that, but plenty of time to think about it. Recording on Wednesday night, and yeah, no games till Friday, so plenty of time to work out what to do there. Uh, cool. Um, so the main thing I wanted to talk about this week was Erin Clark, and there'll be a lot of specific stuff on Erin Clark, but it falls into the theory that I've kind of talked about before and find quite interesting. And I've been told before, and in either the YouTube comments or just in general, that I kind of overthink a lot of this stuff. And yeah, that's maybe true, but I enjoy it. And if you watch my videos, maybe you enjoy it too. So like, is Erin Clark a good buy this week? And I'm not on as high on it, and as I think a lot of people are. Like I know like Jamie talked about him earlier. He'll give you his thoughts. Like I got him last week, traded out Munster, who I didn't really want to trade out, but I got him. I did it last week because I thought if you want Erin Clark for the buy period, and the most of his appeal is the buy coverage, right? That's what people are getting him for. Our mids or like hookers are well, what happened there? Yeah, it doesn't matter. Um our the hooker position is terrible in general. We have no mids in our teams to play round 12. So have somebody with a hooker mid duel is golden. So that's like the main appeal. Um, and then like I thought last week he was 570 odd K, and yeah, I thought that was the week you had to get him because I didn't think spending 600K plus on Erin Clark would be worth it. And it goes back to the stuff I've talked about in the past around, what makes a good trade, like what is the value of a trade? Is it worthwhile? And I kind of had um sorry, this is bothering me and I want to fix it. There you go. Um I kind of thought last week he was priced around 570, which was around priced at like 43-ish. And I thought if you can get 50 at 55 minutes, average 50, close to 50, then there's enough value there to be worth it. It um gives you the coverage that I wanted and is a reasonable trade in terms of how I value trades, right? I either want to, or the way I approach trades is like I either want a gun, like gun keeper, gives that 55, 60 plus, ceiling, or you want value. And what you don't want is picking up guys who have kind of done well and they've got overpriced, and then you jump on and then you lose out. And so that was my thoughts, right? 50 to 55 minutes, hopefully a 50 average. I think my exact words in the video last week were it's not sexy, but it'll do a job. And then he comes out and gets 81 and scores 81. So not only does that blow the price out, thinking he might be 600, 600, 610 or whatever, and now he's like bang, 640, priced at 48. So does that, so if he's still the same guy that we thought he was before, like 50 to 55 minutes, 50 points, I like now it's kind of like, well, that, he's 40, he's priced at 48, so he's not a gun, he's not a keeper, and he's no value. So is he a good trade? And, yes, he has all the buy coverage. That obviously hasn't changed. But do you want to make trades based on just on that? Where, at this point, you can, um, spend up not that much to get a Egan for a hooker, who's been absolutely smashing, whose role's kind of locked in. He's been absolutely smashing it. Like, Marshall King, he's more expensive than Marshall King now. Again, he's kind of been more reliable historically. Others, for mids, there's other mids that you can jump on. There's options there where, and just that 60K, like it makes such a big difference in how I like look at players and analyze them, where it goes from yeah, he's a good buy, nothing special, to oh, like can we actually still get him? And a lot of people are jumping. And this is where the only like I'm. I don't think he'll be a bad bring in. I think worst case scenario he scores mid 40s or something. Maybe even like slightly under where he's priced. He'll give you that coverage. Like it's not going to be a disaster. I don't think. I can't really see how it could become a disaster, but it's the jumping on after big scores where I like think I think people get trapped sometimes. The appeal of, especially if it's somebody that you thought about, because Clark has been talked about a little bit, like over the last little while, but again, because of this coverage, and he's decent scoring. He's been scoring okay, not approaching 81. Like, he had that ridiculous game, like 62 and 42 minutes, which is pretty mad. So he's been scoring well. So he's been on the radar a bit. And then when the 81 comes in, I think that natural reaction is, oh, damn, like I wish I had him. I better get him now because I don't want to miss out on that stuff again. Whereas the other way of looking at it, and the way I try and look at it, is less like, okay, to forget this happened. Like if he'd had a repeat of the previous game, if he'd scored 50 in 64 minutes, 56, let's say, like would you still get him? Or are you getting him because the 81 is what's appealing? And I just think that's a way that people get trapped into buying people that don't have value, they're not keepers. This smells a lot to me like Siwa Wong. And I'll preface all that I'm saying about Erin Clark is that I hope I'm wrong in a lot of this because I have him, and if he scores 80 points every week, that'd be amazing. And I hope he crushes, obviously. But it's still the analysis. And I'm even though I'm talking about Clark specifically, it's more the theory that's the important bit, I think, because um you like Clark, we don't know it's all luck, right? Let's be honest. We don't know what Clark's going to do. He could keep playing big minutes, he could keep playing big scores. So if you get him in, you make the right decision. If you missed out, you made the wrong decision, or he goes back to these minutes and he scores badly. If you bring him in, you did well. If you brought him in, you it hasn't worked out. We don't know what's going to happen. The only way that we can approach it, or that I try and approach it, is to do this analysis and try and work out what it is. And because I don't really have anybody in real life who will sit and listen to me for however long I waffle on in these videos, this is my outlet, right? To this all this garbage floating in my head around NRL fantasy. And like this, like I said, it reminded me or just smelled a lot like Siwa Wong, where he was on the radar even from the start of the year. He was cheap. Um, let's bring up old Wong. Um, and yeah, there's lots of questions. He was scoring well. Is the role there? Is the minutes there? And I'm not sure, not sure. He's making money. He's making money. Um, and then there comes a point where, and I think like Jamie got on this week, I think like 510K. So it's priced around like 37, 38, say. Um, that was still a good buy at that point. And then he kills it, right? He gets the 80. Obviously, there's a lot of luck there, right? The fact that you jump on that week, you get the 80, but he kills it. And it didn't look, you watch the game, it didn't look unreasonable. It wasn't massive attacking stats. Yeah, he had a few offloads, try assist or whatever, but you looked at it and you went, he's not going to score 80 every week. But this is, must be rep replicatable. I think that's the word I want. Um, and then his price just balloons right up to 590. So he's now priced at kind of 43, mid 40s. And a lot of people jumped on then. And then he's gone 32, he's gone 45, he's gone 45. He's kind of come back down to, what you kind of expected. Like what when you bought at this point, you're kind of 37. Like, yeah, you could get, 45 average, something like that, mid 40s. That's fine. That gives you, with upside, the kind of value that you want. And you've got that in your 4 weeks. But if you get on at this point where it's now, he's priced at the, 43s to mid 40s, he needs to be 50 plus to make it worthwhile. And is he actually that guy? And now I see a lot of people looking to trade him out. It's like 3 weeks ago, he was a massive buy-in. Nothing has changed. Like his role hasn't changed, his minutes hasn't changed, but now he's a sell. And then that just kind of asks the question of like, well, was he actually a buy at this point? And if you did make the trade, again, like you've been unlucky because it's not worked out, but what was the analysis correct and the way you think about it, whether or not, it was a trade or not. Because these are the ones where I like historically of and I think it helped me. I've talked about this in other videos. I think the big one we did um with Heath around, the Payne Haas week and stuff, where like how do you judge a good trade? Like what is a good trade? And I'm always careful about like how much money you're spending on somebody. It's not just I want this guy, I have to get him in. It has to be around is he worth what I'm paying for and what I'm giving up to get him. And what really helped me last year, I think the reason I did come, 111th, even though I missed out on a ton of guys, like I didn't have Jaden Campbell and Fogarty and all these guys that were like killing it, was because I missed them originally. And you say you can't get everybody. You can't catch them all. You're going to miss out on some people. And if sometimes you just have to let it go at the keeper. If you'd started with Wong or got him in these weeks, you're laughing. Like it's not like he's a bad player or was a bad bring in or anything like that. He's been great if you got him at the right price. But at some point, he become, like a lot of guys become overpriced. They've overachieved, I guess, from what you can expect in the long term. And like if you're jumping on then it's hampering what you can do elsewhere in your team. So even if if you miss out on some guys, that's fine because you can pick up somebody else that other people don't have. Like there's always options. So if you get to Siwa Wong and you see him at 590 and go, God damn, like I wish I had him. I wish he was in my team. And this is my thing with Haas, right? I wish Payne Haas was in my team. I just never thought that I had like a good opportunity to get to him or was worth what I was giving up to get Haas in. The problem I have with Haas is that even though Haas is, you know, not scored he was priced at 71 that week. He's averaged, I think, even after last week, like 67. So the opportunity is there to perform better, but the rest of my team has been garbage, and the likes of Grant and Munster never did it, and it hasn't helped me. But instances like this, like like if you're regretting Siwa Wong, do you get him in there, priced at the mid 40s, or let it go through and get somebody else that is either the same price but like a fallen gut, like Erin Clark, around when he was around that price, or somebody else, right? A Ponga if he comes good. These might not be the best examples, but you know what I mean. You guys know what I'm saying. Um, you always want to concentrate on value. And like I did a little exercise, and this is a bit sad. Um, but thinking about this again, this is the way my brain works, and this is um thinking about it, chasing points and what happened. I just kind of wanted to have a look of like, well, what actually happens when people go big? And I kind of went through each round, and I did this manually on the winners and losers um story on the app every week. So I might have missed some guys out. This isn't scientific. There's probably mistakes, but I kind of picked everybody who, went 70 or more. And then what did they follow up with? And obviously this is skewed by, your Guns, your Haas, your May, who've done this every week essentially. Um, but then there's a lot of the other guys who will show up with a big score and then they'll drop down. Nick Meaney started with a 71 and then went to a 22. Pappenhausen 70 and a 36. It's all a lot of these guys we know that's going to happen. Like if you buy a Pappenhausen, you know you're going to get 70s, you know you're going to get 30s or lower. That's just the way it goes. Marju 70 into 24, and then you had, a few low ones in a row. Then he's back up with an 88 and then into a 40. So when you get on these guys, and it's the danger of chasing points because after I counted 62 times this year, somebody scored a 70. 50% of them, exactly 50%, got a 50 the next week. And that makes sense, right? Like in theory, you're not going to have, not a lot of people are going to get 70s every week. But, 50%, it's an interesting number. I've people scoring 80 plus, less than 50, smaller sample size, less than 50% uh, followed up with a 50 the next week. So when you are chasing those points, especially from the guys who, haven't done it before, this is the risk. And this is where, again, the Clark one puts up kind of red flags because if you're getting him because he got 81 and it's raised your expectations, and then he just goes back to the 40s, like, are you happy with that? Like, but getting the expectations done. Um, and the other kind of, I guess, red flags around Erin Clark to me is he can't overstate how much of an, you talk about outlier games. Like, this is such an outlier game. It's ridiculous. Before last week, before this Broncos game, so if you look at his, over 60, and he's not a young guy, right? He's 27. He's been around since 2020. Um, Before last week, 2 weeks ago, he had literally never played more than 60 minutes outside of starting at hooker. And I'm sure in these games, there might be time he might start at hooker, move to the middle, you know, whatever. But even just doing that, just playing, say, regardless of scoring, just playing 60 minutes in the middle never happened before that Broncos game. So that, and this is where I always like, I have, again, if you've heard me talk nonsense about this stuff before, like I do put a lot of stock in what's happened before. It takes a lot for me to like believe that somebody's changed, as in like, this is who they've been historically, and we've got enough of a sample size to get an idea on it. And then now we're seeing signs that they've changed into something else. And I struggle to, and this like sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, right? Sometimes people do change, especially younger, more on the younger players side, where they haven't had minutes in the past, and now they're growing into the role and they're getting more exposure and like um they're better for it, and you can kind of see that progression. But we can also get that wrong. Like you think guys are improving, and Jamie laughs about his Davy Moali pick at the start of the year, where that was an idea of, well, if he's an improving younger player, that just never paid off. So, but again, like Clark's instance, he's 27. It's not like he's young, not old, but again, not young. But we've had enough of a sample size to be like, can we really expect 60 minutes every week? Yes, it's a different team, different situation. It might be that the Warriors are forced into it because they don't have anyone else. Um, Fisher Harris is back soon. Does that make a difference? Who knows? They got rid of Dylan Walker, so does it mean they don't have anyone else, so they need to do it? I don't know. Or were they just pushing minutes in these games for whatever reason, and then he's going to drop back down to these? Because I mean, one thing I've learned this year is I have no idea what coaches are thinking at any given point around minutes, right? Like we as fantasy players, we want things to be simple. We want to know this guy will play this amount of minutes every week, and then you work it out from there. And this year in particular feels like it's just not the case. I mean, the Warriors in particular, Barnett and Fisher Harris, owners are raging about the minutes they're getting. Even people like, I mean, used Toby Couchman as the example last week. Like he's played big minutes, and doesn't look tired. Like he can clearly play big minutes on any given day, but played 49 at the last week. Wasn't injured or anything. Like, was it just like why? Like, what was it? The game script dictated it. Like, oh, we're getting beat, so we won't bother bringing him back on. Was it a pre-planned thing of, oh, we've pushed you hard the last couple of weeks, so we'll dial it back a little bit here. Payne Haas is the same, right? He might play 70 minutes, he might play 55 minutes. We just don't know. So this is like, again, it's hard for me to be like, oh, well, he's played 60 minutes twice in a row. That's his role going forward, when it has literally never happened in his career before. Not that he can't do it. I mean, he play, and the other thing is obviously he's playing really well, which you would think playing well, the more minutes you get. But Couchman's playing really well, and they still knocked him down to 40 odd minutes. So yeah, it worries me. It would worry me if I was looking to bring him in. The other thing as well, even with this, the scoring, like four offloads. I think there was one other game in his whole career he's had four offloads. He got a try assist. He's had seven try assists in his entire career. 45 tackles, massive. Is that the most he's ever had? I'm scanning through 53 once, 44. So maybe the second biggest tackle numbers of all time. Like it's the outlier of all outliers. And if you're buying for that upside, I think you might be in trouble. Is just the only thing I want to say. And again, like this isn't necessary. It is talking about Clark. Um, I know a lot of people are gonna get him this week, and like I said, I don't think it's a bad trade. I think it'll work out fine. It's more just the thought process behind it is what I wanted to kind of get into because it's the stuff I find interesting. Like why are we doing it? What makes us think it's going to be a good trade or a bad trade? Because we don't know. It's all luck. But we can try and project our best. And if you get the projections right, and if your system's right or your analysis is right, um, the better you'll do. Some trades work, some trades don't. But the more, the more off the trades will work more often if the process is correct. So yeah, I mean, if you want to get Clark, get him. There's that little part of me that's like, he's the one trade that I've had that's worked well this year, a bit of a pod, and now everybody's climbing on, and it's like, well, there goes my pod. But that's not why I'm doing it. I mean, clear, I make these videos so I can talk fantasy because I find it interesting, hopefully help people, and I show you how well I'm doing. So, take my advice for, with a pile of salt. Um, but yeah, if you want him, get him, but go through the process, I guess is all I'd say. And I'm hedging my bets a little bit because if he does continue to kill it, then I'm happy because I'm getting tons of points. If he does go back to that normal, that mid 40s, 50 points or whatever, and becomes not a great buy-in, then at least my analysis was correct. So I'm in a win-win situation there. Yeah, that's kind of all I had on trades and so on. I'm not sure if there was any. Like I said, I went through this thing. Nothing really stood out. Other than the Wong one was an example. Cola 81 to 34. Like, Daniel Saiafiti was one that was a Clifford. Jake Clifford as well was somebody that, he didn't have a big drop in one game, but he has since. And it's kind of again just that idea of when people get good scores, is it sustainable or is it, a one-off that is you don't want to go chasing. Connor Watson, 98-27. I think that was his head knock game. That doesn't really count. Fafita, another big one. This is one where I think we've all kind of, well, not all of us, a lot of us dodged a bullet here, not getting a lot of would have, jumping on after the 92. And this is the thing. Again, like I saw everyone saw the 92. Dave Fafita's back, and yes, he had his injury, and there was weirdness going on there with his. He had a 4 week injury that became 1 week, and then he played off the bench, and now he's dropped. Or like, is that injured? So I mean, like, what's going on there? No idea. But it's the kind of an ultimate scenario of what I'm talking about, where he comes in, massive score, we all want it, and maybe if he didn't hadn't got injured, it would have worked. But yeah, gives you that worry. Um, oh, the other thing I wanted to mention as well, and I'll jump on something. I think like Mitch and Matt's video earlier in the week, kind of touched on this a little bit, maybe without saying it in the same way. But Mitch was talking about Jerome Hughes as a possible buy-in, and like I don't see myself bringing him in, but I like the logic of you get guys before the big score, right? Like if you jumped on Fafita before the big score, then yeah, then the rest is annoying, but you've got the big score. Um, if you get if somebody brings Jerome Hughes in this week and then he comes out with an 80, which we know he can do, there'll be people will be trying to jump on. The origin period doesn't help. Their buy schedule doesn't help too much. Um, I don't believe with the Storm. Uh, where are they? Yes, they don't play the first couple of buy rounds. Um, but still, if you see a gun and somebody that we know can score well get a big score, people will be really tempted. And what you don't and what you kind of don't want is you see oh, he gets an 80, I'll buy him, and then he goes back to the 40. Like you want him for the 80. Um, which is why, I was on board. I didn't do it, but I was on board with a lot of people bringing Walsh in. Again, didn't work because of injury. But we know he can score big. And if he did, if he'd come out with an 80, everyone else would have followed. But there's nothing to say he doesn't go back to those 30s, 40s. Like, they scoring a big game. And, there's scenarios where, like, if the role, you want to see a role. It's less about the score, but more about the role. Um, like for, like Bo Fermor's 100 or whatever, right? Him getting 100 shouldn't affect your analysis of if you want him or not. But him playing in the edge instead of center should is more important, like to determine whether or not you want him. Kind of about the role or about injury. If people have been injured and or they're playing hurt, and that's maybe where Hughes is. Like, is he hurt? Is he fit? You want to see him fully fit before you jump on. That's totally fine. But waiting for the big score just to see them get a big score when we know they can't, like they've done it historically, um, to miss out is yeah, it's a hard part of the game, right? But you want to the way you make advantage over other people is getting on before they do out on players with value. That's why I recommend holding Ponga. He's pretty close to a buy. Um, if something came out that he wouldn't play Origin for whatever reason, and then, he's bound to, um, but quite, I'd be very, very interested in buying him because we know who Kalen Ponga is. We know he's going to score big, and you want to hold him when he does over other people, not jump on with everyone else when he's when the big score's gone. So yeah, just like a bit of kind of logic there, I think, in terms of, I mean, not even logic, but just if you've got, if you think people can go big, even if they haven't and they're underpriced, that's when you get on. You don't wait till they score big for a few weeks in a row, price goes up, then you jump on and like, yeah, are you more likely to get big scores after previous big scores? If the role is changed, maybe, but in a lot of instances, no. And all it means is you're paying more for, less at that point. So yeah, hopefully that all made sense. Again, like I said, this is just my way of getting thoughts that have whirled round in my in what counts or um counts as a brain in my head for the last few days. I don't think there's a whole lot to talk about here. This is still this thing where I just track like, the top guns, top scorers in each position and like, who plays round 12 and there. And I think what I'll probably start doing next week is, or maybe the week after, is start thinking about the future buy rounds, which I haven't done as much. Like I've listed them out here, but just again, try and get ahead of the game a little bit. Like it might be like too much. Like I mean, some people I know people, like Mitch says, like he doesn't think too far ahead, which can definitely work. Like you can, you know, get in a position where you're like if you're keeping Jenkins, for example, even though you don't want him just because he plays round 12 and round 9, like is that the right decision? Like you could argue either way, but you even though we've got round 12 to think about, you need to make the right moves in each, now as well, not just hold an average team just because they play round 12. So you can get caught up a little bit too much. But at the same time, it does like I think that helped me with the Clark move. Like because I've been kind of thinking about this and I had Clark earmarked as, somebody that I wanted because I'd kind of looked at my team and it's like, well, I don't have a hooker, I don't have any mids, possibly Horsburgh, but probably not at this point. Um, so that's why he was on my radar, why I went early, or not so much early in my eyes at the time, but the last possible point before I thought he wasn't going to be worth it. Um, and that in this instance it's worked. I've got a great score and I've got 60K in price rises, whatever it was. So having that planning ahead, I think can help you pick people out rather than you just do it at round 12 when everybody's at a peak price and um you're not getting big you might be missing out on some big scores beforehand. um the last point I didn't mention, I mean it's been very Erin Clark heavy this month, sorry, this week. um but yeah, the other point again, it's like thinking about the future weeks. Like if you want to bring him in, he's great for round 12, but from then on it's like round 15, round 18 they don't play, and then even round 13, would you even play him round 13? Like we're going to have Mamazelis, who's been that 50 average himself. We're going to have a million mids, right? You're going to have Horsburgh, May, Yo, Haas, Couchman, as guys who you might have but didn't play round 13, round 12. So another like two or three mids on top of that. Like, are you playing Clark over Haas and May and Horsburgh? Like, even, you maybe sell Yo, but you might still have Horsburgh, May, Haas, Couchman, whoever else, like whoever, AFB, I think they're on a buy that week. They are, yes, Max King, whoever, right? Like if you bring these guys in, these gun mids in, Tapany, like would you even play Clark round 13? Like maybe not. So yeah, he's really good for that 1 week, not so great after that. Just another thing to um put into the pot for your consideration. Um, I'll have a quick run through Q&As. There was nothing really. Most of the YouTube comments this week are around the Discord being turned off, which I never used, so I can't comment too much. But yeah, a lot of kind of common sort of questions. Is Hubner a sell? Well, like I said, I think he's a hold for a week. At least get an idea of what the minutes look like. Might still make a little bit of money. Even playing 40, 50 minutes, still decent. But getting like if you're just doing Hubner to Tuivasa, I don't really see the point in that. If you want to do that in order to make another trade, then I think that's okay. But Clark last week, yep, good trade. Clark or Drinkwater. Um, like they're just very different. Like I've spoken, I think I've covered Clark. Um, Drinkwater, probably overall more reliable, like as in like, he could be a season long keeper. I don't think Clark is. Um, but Drinkwater doesn't play round 12 and Clark's really useful. So like I don't know how you can compare the two, really. It depends what you want. It depends what your team is. Drinkwater or Teddy. Again, like round 12, like this is the stuff. Like if I'm still like, oh, Teddy could still play Origin. So yeah, like that would be a worry. Um, in terms of getting him now. But if he doesn't, he's golden, right? He's Teddy. He'll play every bye round. Drinkwater won't play round 12, but will be good after that. So look, up to you. Watson to Lucas, Munster to Hines. Yeah, yeah. Seems fine. I mean, Watson, like you could hold a week for Watson still. Like he's still a gun. Last week was really low scoring for everybody. Ball wasn't in play. Nobody made tackles. Um, so like I don't think he's a must sell or anything. But if you want to do it early, that's fine. Munster or Hines, sure. Uh, Jenkins to King Tony, yeah, Tony Lucas, yeah, fine. Campbell to Clark, Regan or AFB. Yeah, again, made my things very clear. Egan and AFB are more likely to be the season-long keepers. Like AFB should be a season-long keeper. Plays round 12, plays round 15. He's a good Egan as well. Yeah. Like if you want somebody for the year, Egan and that are, I'd say they're much better than Clark. Trade along to Clark or hold. Again, I think I've talked about that. Radley a buy. I've seen a bit of Radley talking about. Yeah, he's an interesting one. He's just never been a big scorer, really. And you're terrified watching him that every time he goes into a tackle, he's not going to get back up. So, um, like he could be interesting depending on what price he like. What's his? I did. I think he's 500 and something. Is he? 503. Yeah, that's even cheaper than I kind of thought he was. Yeah, like I think it's interesting. I probably need to put a bit more thought into it, but priced at 37, like he's probably similar to the Clark stuff in a way in terms of like he'll be fine and he'll give you coverage, but is he actually going to, produce like big scorers? So yeah, I'm not sure, but yeah, he's definitely worth thinking about. Other than that, yeah, 4 nights. Yeah, 4 nights is fine. I mean, it's weird, isn't it, that they're the worst team in the league, but we're all, everybody's getting Knights players. Very, very strange. But yeah, like they don't have a buy till uh round 18. So you've got plenty of runway to hold your Knights, and then you can sell them the if as and when you need to. Sell Dylan Egan? No, I don't think so. He's sell. I mean, I'd keep Egan for a while. Like he had one lower scoring game in that game where none of the no forwards were getting good scores, good tackles. So you know he's named to start. See what his minutes look like. You'll still make a bit more cash. Like I'm in no rush to get rid of him. Can you loop if you're? Oh, sorry, I went past. Nah, yeah. Willison's interesting. Willison's interesting. He could go well. Um, does he go back to the middle when Haas and thing? I think the problem with him is for normally he's really good over the origin period, but Broncos don't play the first two bye rounds, so you're not getting that. He'll play tons of middle minutes when Haas and Carrigan are away that you might normally get out of him. But he's doing okay on, if he keeps an 80-minute edge roll up, then, he could still be good. But they seem to have their bench. The bench seem to be packed with edges, so I don't know what they're really doing. It might be, he'll go off for Piakura, or maybe he moves to the middle and like the likes of Piakura and that come on. I don't know. But yeah, trades seem okay. Tell me to pull the buy string on Ponga. Do it. Why not? I mean, Origin's the main reason why not. But like I was saying earlier, right? Like he's so cheap. He'll have a big score. You want to own him when he has the big score. So I don't mind jumping in at all. And yeah, early, exactly. Get people before they go big rather than waiting for them to go big. Can you live with your full team playing? No, unfortunately not. Yeah, you need to have somebody an empty space in order to, kind of choose who you want to pick out of that. Okay, that's enough talking. Apologies if you wanted, something other than Erin Clark related stuff, but like I said, it's Clark specific, but it's also about the theory and hopefully what I say makes sense in a way that you can apply it to other people, not just Erin Clark this week and other people in later weeks of, just determining are they worth buying at whatever price they are. So anyway, thanks everybody. And yeah, hopefully Clark gets hopefully nobody buys Clark and he gets 90 points this week. How about that? See ya.